Chapter 3, and it's entitled Marie Sklodowska. And it's the start of when she goes to the Sorbonne. So I started it with a quote by Martin Luther, and he was alive from 1483 to 1546. And he writes, "It is in Paris that we find the most celebrated and most excellent of schools. It is called the Sorbonne." Now to the text. Maria's answer barely reaches Paris, and Bronya is on her way to Poland. Bronya is coming home to help her sister make preparations and ensure Maria doesn't change her mind. Maria will be traveling by train in a fourth-class car, which means no heat and no seats. Passengers must bring their own blankets and a stool to sit on for the 40-hour ride. Bronya helps Maria pack food and drinks to last the trip rather than buy food at train stops. A mattress and linens are sent ahead by freight rail, which is less costly than purchasing these items in Paris. Bronya also knows Maria will need her warm winter clothes. She explains to Maria that she will be using the horse-drawn omnibuses to and from the Sorbonne. The cheapest seats are on the top and open to weather. The family goes to the train station to see Maria off. What emotions does Vladislav have this day? A father who has sacrificed his life to raise his children can breathe a sigh of relief to see his youngest finally able to reach for the higher goals that come with education. He is proud of his little Manya, and he will miss her very much. It's the first day of November, 1891. Maria makes the train trip alone. Bronya is staying behind to visit longer with her father. 40 hours of November chill, sitting on a stool, no place to lie down, and when the train stops, there is only a quick chance to get out and stretch. Maria eats the food she has packed, and she must make sure she keeps her travel documents secure. The border police for Russia and Prussian segments of Poland are known to make trouble for young women traveling alone. Maria crosses safely into Germany and continues into France. Stepping onto the station platform in Paris, Maria is entering a new world. In fiction, the writer could use this opportunity to increase the conflict by portraying Maria as the naive innocent on a new adventure against the cold, cruel world. This portrayal would be an injustice to Maria. Curious? Yes. Single-minded? Yes. Self-assured? Yes. There is no evidence to support a portrayal of Maria as a babe in the woods. Turning 25 in a few days, this is the first time Maria has been outside of her Russian-ruled country, Poland. Walking along the streets of Paris, she is surprised to hear people speaking several languages with no one in fear of being arrested. Visiting a bookstore, she sees books on the shelves that in her country are banned. The realization of living in a free country is sometimes startling and sometimes subtle. Maria is also free in her heart. After waiting 4 years in hopes Casimir would make a stand for her, Maria is making a stand for herself. As Maria walks across the courtyard of the Sorbonne, dressed in her clothes from Poland, she is connecting the past to her future. What she does not bring with her is her name. On the class registration card, she writes, Marie Sklodowska. And so for the remainder of the story, her choice of using Marie will be used. In the revived belief of her own self is the energy, is the energy that will cut her loose for a life beyond her highest hopes. Marie will unleash a new era for science. On the university notice board, she reads, French Republic, Faculty of Sciences, first quarter. Courses will begin at the Sorbonne on November 3rd, 1891. Marie's determination to make something of her life is immediately tested when she realizes her French is too faulty and her course preparation in chemistry and physics is inadequate. Cutting into her limited resources, Marie engages tutors to bring her skills up to par with her fellow students who have spent 7 years preparing. And lastly, she must find her way past the doors of a paternal society that writes the rules of admission. No tutor or amount of money will fix that. The emotional maneuvering for women is an additional drain of energy, which is not a consideration for male students. As an aside, not until the 1950s is there a law in France that requires schools to offer the same university preparation classes for girls as it does for boys. Back to the text. Bronya and her husband Casimir, not the Casimir of Marie's ex-boyfriend, they live in a working-class area of Paris. Casimir fled occupied Poland because of his socialist stance, and it is not safe for him to return. Both Bronya and Casimir are medical doctors, the difference being Casimir can see both male and female patients, although female patients remain dressed during an examination. Bronya can see only women patients, and since she is a woman, Bronya can examine her patients in an appropriate manner. The couple uses their apartment during the day for a medical office and an examining room. 2 nights a week, Casimir sees patients free of charge. If it's not patients coming and going from the apartment, it is visitors. Citizens of Poland, either students or expelled political activists, are a common stream in and out of the Dluskis' apartment, enjoying a place to gather for Polish food, friendship, homespun entertainment, and political conversation. 2 of these guests will later become presidents of Poland. One guest is a pianist struggling to make a career. Marie remembers one night Casimir insisting she stop studying and come with him to hear the man play at a concert. Marie protests, but Casimir insists. "No buts," he says. "It's the Polish pianist I told you about. There are very few seats taken, and we've absolutely got to help the poor boy out by filling the hall. I've already recruited a whole crowd, and we'll applaud until our hands crack, so it'll seem as if it's a success. Anyway, and if you only knew how well he plays." The pianist is Ignacy Paderewski. The day will come when in the world his concerts will be sold out. Paderewski will also be a prime minister and a foreign minister of Poland after World War I. Casimir relishes a hubbub of activity. Marie does not. While Bronya is still visiting with her family, Casimir is under the impression Marie will play hostess to his guests. He realizes he is wrong. In his good nature, Casimir writes to Marie's father, "Dear and honored sir, everything is going very well with us. Mademoiselle Marie is working seriously. She passes nearly all her time at the Sorbonne, and we meet only at the evening meal. She is a very independent young person, and in spite of the formal power of attorney by which you have placed her under my protection, she not only shows me no respect or obedience, but does not care about my authority and my seriousness. I hope to reduce her to some reason, but up to now my pedagogical talent has not proved efficacious. In spite of all this, we understand each other very well and live in the most perfect agreement. I await Bronya's arrival with impatience. My young lady does not seem to be in a hurry to get home, where her presence would nevertheless be very useful and where she is in much demand. I may add that Mademoiselle Marie is perfectly well and looks it." Marie, in the meantime, is writing to her brother about Casimir, and she says, "My little brother-in-law, disturbing me endlessly, enduring having me do anything but engage in agreeable chatter with him. I had to declare war on him on this subject." Banter, but making a point. Marie is insisting her studies come first, and her father is insisting too. Marie and her father have a steady correspondence. She is keeping him informed of her progress, requesting packages of particular Polish items, and telling him about the fun she is having in her new life. After writing him about her part in an insignificant political play, a spoof, Vladimir writes back, "Your last letter saddened me. I deplore your taking such active part in the organization of this theatrical representation. Even though it be done as a thing in all innocence, it attracts attention to its organizers, and you certainly know that there are persons in Paris who inspect your behavior with the greatest care, who take note of the names of those who are in the forefront." From the years of living under Russian rule, having seen family and friends for lesser offenses be sent to Siberia, and knowing Bronya's husband is known as a troublemaker, Vladislav's fear is not unfounded. Marie heeds his advice, although more for reasons of commitment to her studies. Marie is frustrated with the interruptions to her studying, and her commute to classes takes up 2 hours every day. By the end of her first month in Paris, Marie finds an apartment for herself close to the school. Well, apartment is a stretch of the word. Marie rents a garret room, which is the cheapest rental because it is a room in the attic, 6 floors up. Summer heat makes the room an oven. Winter cold makes the room a freezer. With no side windows, natural light is the only... With no side windows, natural light is only through the skylight. Water is available on the 3rd floor along with the bathroom. For furniture, Marie has her bed, a kitchen chair, wash basin, oil lamp, a pitcher to fetch water at the lower floor, and a small heater that uses alcohol to heat food or water. Completing her kitchenware accoutrements are 2 plates, a knife, fork, spoon, cup, pan, and kettle. When Bronya and Casimir come to visit, she has 3 glasses for tea, and the trunk serves for extra seating. Marie's simple life includes not caring for fashion, and she learns to mend her clothes. Marie's neighbors are poor artists, male students, or prostitutes. Marie writes in her autobiographical notes that the room I lived in was very cold in winter, for it was insufficiently heated by a small stove which often lacked coal. During a particularly rigorous winter, it was not unusual for the water to freeze in the basement at night. To be able to sleep, I was obliged to pile all my clothes on the bed covers. In the same room, I prepare my meals with the aid of an alcohol lamp and a few kitchen utensils. These meals are often reduced to bread with a cup of chocolate, eggs, or fruit. I had no help in housekeeping, and I myself carried the little coal I used up the 6 flights of stairs. She describes this time, though, as, quote, one of the best memories of my life. And her happiness she writes, that this period of solitary years exclusively devoted to studies for which I had waited so long. The austerity of Marie's life enables her to make every second count in order to study. Her spirit of autonomy soars, and she later writes about this time that it gave me a precious sense of liberty and independence. Unknown in Paris, I was lost in the great city, but the feeling of living there alone, taking care of myself without any aid, did not at all depress me. If sometimes I felt lonesome, my usual state of mind was one of calm and great moral satisfaction. Marie can now walk to the Sorbonne in only a matter of minutes. Student poverty hasn't changed much, except today Marie might have been eating ramen soup instead of a boiled egg. What is remarkable for Marie's time is the fact she is living alone. A historian, Jules Michelet, of the late 1800s, records the public opinion of that time, quote, "The worst fate for a woman was to live alone. She could hardly go out in the evening. She would be taken for a prostitute. There are thousands of places where only men go, and if some business should take the woman there, one would be astonished. For example, if she were late, far from home, and became hungry, she would not dare enter a restaurant. She would make a spectacle of herself." End quote. Respectable women appear in public only with a chaperone and would never have a male guest in her apartment. Only one type of woman does that. Male dominance is not mere public opinion, it's the law. If a woman runs away from her husband, he can legally track her down and have her returned to him. In 1891, women can't bear witness in a civil suit, nor can they spend their own earnings without their husband's permission. A divorce for a woman means giving up all of her rights to property, income, and child custody. There is no law preventing abuse of women or children. A wife can be charged with adultery and taken to court for her crime. For a husband, if he is charged, it is not even a misdemeanor, and he is dismissed with a wink. An ingenious twist in public pressure on women is the unspoken burden on women to not be rude, and spoil this chauvinistic emperor's parade by declaring the emperor has no clothes, and Marie is in the heart of where a parade could pop up any time. Living in the rowdy Latin Quarter, Marie is at ground zero for the local hangout for students who are on a low budget looking for a good time. While Marie is living there, there is a riot, it's in 1893, that requires 30,000 troops to disband it. The mob is demonstrating against a crackdown on public nudity during the Parisian annual ball. An American observing the Latin Quarters, he writes, "Does it not seem strange that both the Saint Severn and the Sorbonne appear to take no notice of the notorious fact that the apartments, whose windows look in upon them, are occupied by loose women, who live in the most open manner possible with the students and flourish elbow to elbow with the church and the university?" End quote. In an example of Pick Your Battles, when Marie or her daughter Eve writes of Marie's life, that the emphasis is always on Marie's crusade as a student and scientist. Marie will always make a stand for the rights of equal education for women, and she will defend her role in science discoveries. Marie does not confront the double standards of society, nor does she discuss her own stories of harassment and intimidation. One instance is recorded by other historians. On the streets of Paris, when some male students are becoming too aggressive toward Marie's friend and fellow student, Mademoiselle Jadwiga Didinska, defends Marie with her umbrella. As an aside, let me explain what a salon is. A salon is a gathering organized and hosted by a particularly inspiring person with the purpose of sharing knowledge through entertaining conversation. The salon provided a venue where women could express their opinions. At the end of the late 1800s, the popularity of the mixed-gender salon is slowly fading, and the conversation is moving to all-male clubs. Back to the text. Women who had once added to and learned from the discussions as guests or hosts of a salon are now out of the loop, as all-male clubs are on the rise. If a woman tries to join a club, she risks public rebuke. Octave Mirbeau, who is a French journalist, literary art critic, he writes at the time, quote, "Woman is not a brain, she is a sex, and that is much better. She has only one role in this world, to make love, that is, to perpetuate the women. Rare exceptions have been able to give, either in art or literature, the illusion that they are creative, but they are either abnormal or simply reflections of men. I prefer what are called prostitutes, because they at least are in harmony with the universe." End quote. The male preference of the woman's role is being taught at the Sorbonne. In a lecture on the psychology of women by Henry Marion, he states, quote, "The more advanced a society's civilization, the more pronounced the division of labor between men and women becomes. In the large cities of the great nations of the West, where civilization is at its highest, gender differentiation is at a maximum," end quote. Marie, being in the most advanced civilization, is inconsistent with his gender differentiation. Hearing this perspective on women from the hallowed halls of the Sorbonne is no surprise. The French noun étudiante describes two types of women. An étudiante is either a female university student or a mistress of a male university student. A writer of the times, Henri Almaras, he explains the étudiantes are not there to study, but to distract the male students from studying. He explains, quote, "What distinguishes the serious female student, almost always a foreigner, is that almost no one takes her seriously. If she is treated with a certain courtesy, she should consider herself lucky. The jokes that are made about her are not always in the best taste. These female students work with great patience, as though they were doing embroidery. Their study makes them ugly. They usually look like school teachers and wear glasses. In the examinations, they recite with admirable exactitude what they've learned. They don't always understand," end quote. The inference is not subtle. Women students are not taken seriously. A female student, an étudiante, should stick to her role of responding to the sexual needs of the male students. Marie will not fall in with this description. Marie records, "All my mind was centered on my studies. I divided my time between courses, experimental work, and study in the library. In the evening, I worked in my room, sometimes very late into the night. All that I saw and learned that was new delighted me. It was like a new world opened to me, the world of science, which I was at last permitted to know at all liberty." Marie disregards everything but her attendance for lectures or her studies in her room. In a letter to her brother, Marie writes, "I am working 1,000 times harder than at the beginning of my stay." Marie is one of 210 women in the midst of 9,000 male students to the Sorbonne. Within the Faculty of Sciences, her female colleagues are even a smaller proportion. She is one of 23 women among 1,825 students. Chances of Marie gathering a list of admirers are great, except for her singular commitment to her studies. In the next 3 years, no male suitors will garner Marie's attention. One Frenchman writes her a letter with the hopes that when Marie is done with her studies, he will be a consideration. A Polish student is so upset when Marie doesn't respond to his attentions that he swallows laudanum. Marie responds, "The young man has no sense of priorities." Marie is an anomaly. Not only is she a woman attending a university, studying in a man's field, and living independently, she is establishing her identity. And that identity is not in the realm of looking for a marriage, fulfillment as a mother, or the thrill of adultery. Exasperated men ask, "Good grief, what does she want then?" Marie wants to be a research scientist. And here's a quote by Professor Paul Appel. He's a mathematician at the Sorbonne, and he says, "I take the sun and I throw it." Paul Appel is a member of the French Academy of Sciences, dean of the Faculty of Science at the Sorbonne between 1903 and 1920, and Marie's professor. Appel's daughter is Marguerite Appel. She's a journalist and marries Émile Borel. He's a mathematician. And we'll hear more about them later, which is why I took time to tell you. All right, to the text. The timing for Marie to be a science student is perfect for several reasons. 1. The emphasis on science at the Sorbonne is attracting the best scientists of Europe for their faculty. This attention came after France lost the Franco-Prussian War. The French government realizes they need to invest money in laboratories so their research will be cutting edge and increase their chances of winning the next war. 2. The tide of opinion to keep the church out of science is rising. 3. The field of chemistry is abuzz with competition to discover the remaining elements on the periodic table. At this time, there are only 79 known elements. An emphasis on laboratory research being the cornerstone to the student's education is exactly what Marie wants. She doesn't mind that a science student has to understand everything that is known to science, the mathematics, the laws of physics and chemistry, how to work in a laboratory, use the instruments, and know techniques of measurement. At the end of her first year, Marie stays the summer in Paris for additional classes in mathematics, physics, and for tutoring to continue to improve her French. Marie is so engrossed in nurturing her brain that she neglects nurturing her body and has a fainting spell in the library. Casimir is notified and rushes to Marie's attic room. After examining her and seeing nothing in the room for her to eat, he insists Marie come and stay again with him and Bronya until she recuperates. Marie spends time getting well, although not at the expense of missing classes. Marie has been studying at the Sorbonne for 18 months. Her father continues to give support, even if he isn't always included in Marie's latest plans. He writes to Bronya, "Your last letter mentions for the first time that Manya intends to take her examinations for the masters. Write me exactly when these examinations will take place, at what date Manya can hope to pass them, and what are the fees for them, and how much the diploma will cost. I must think of all this in advance so as to be able to send some money to Manya, and on this my personal plans depend." He makes no recrimination of Marie for not keeping him informed, and there is no guilt trip asking when Marie is planning on coming back to Warsaw. At the end of the term, Marie and another woman are the only two female students left pursuing a degree in science. Marie is worried. Quote, "The nearer the examinations come, the more I am afraid of not being ready." End quote. The exams are in July 1893. The test results will be known in a few days. There's nothing to do but wait. The names are announced in the Sorbonne Amphitheater in order of merit. The day the students gather in the amphitheater, Marie does not have to wait long to know the results of her exams, marking the first time a woman, a foreigner, has graduated top in her class. The first name announced is Marie Sklodowska. Going home to Poland, Marie will rest and have time with her family for the summer. What a sight to see the reunion of Marie and her father. His little Manya, who had earned the gold medal for being first in her class at the gymnasium, now she is first in her class with a degree in physics from the Sorbonne University. And like most proud families, they feed her. Aghast at how thin she has become, by the end of the summer, Marie is taking back with her a few extra pounds. Also home for the summer holiday is Marie's fellow female Sorbonne student, Jadwiga Didinsky, who was the umbrella fighter. Jadwiga is advocating for Marie to receive the Alexandrovich Scholarship designated for Polish students studying abroad. Marie is awarded the scholarship, which includes money to cover the next year's expenses. Marie will later repay the award money so that they can use it for another student. She returns to Paris to work toward her second degree in mathematics. Taking the train back to the Sorbonne, it's the fall of 1893. What a difference a mere 2 years has made. Marie is returning as a graduate student with a scholarship from Poland. Marie's professor, Gabriel Lippmann, is also arranging for a position for her with the Society of the Encouragement of National Industry. They are going to pay Marie to chart the magnetic property of various steels. With the advent of electricity, magnetism has increased industrial value. Marie is thrilled with this opportunity. The equipment Marie will be using is bulky, and there are a large number of metal samples she will need to test. The immediate problem, then, is laboratory space. This problem will be resolved by the most amazing man she will ever meet. And that's the end of Chapter 3, Part 1. Thank you.